Riddle, riddle to start the stream. Murder comes to this Twitch scene. A body in a lonely couch. Will its friends approach? Or the lad on the screen? Will he read the script unseen? Alice, Alice, where are you? Won't you give us a single clue? The audience is here. It's time to speak. The 800's lives another day.
And with that, welcome to this week's episode of the 800's. I'm your co-host, Alex, and you just heard the lovely riddle me stylings of my fellow co-host, Adam, and a quick hello to behind the scenes to our tech man, Alan. What's up?
Yes, and if you joined us pre-stream here, you heard some sweet melodious music by the cool skills of Incompetech. Check them out at incompetech.filmmusic.io. We use them for absolutely everything because they're so cool. Also, we have a YouTube channel, DM's Table. Check it out for other videos that we do, our podcast, other books, past books. Watch some of those books and leave some comments, and we can keep the conversation alive. And finally, I'm a big fan of audiobooks. Most of the books that we do for this show, I buy the audiobook and listen to it while I'm commuting or doing chores or other things. So if you are like me and want to check out audiobooks, go to dmstable.com/audible for a free 1-month trial and one free book. And also we have a couple of new followers. I wanted to quick give a shout out to Mrs. Skolart16. Thanks for the follow. R for IVLOG. I'm not sure how that one.
I think it's R for I vlog, or maybe they can let us know in the chat.
Roll for initiative, but thanks okay. Guys, for the follow. And then Storm Reed, I see you guys are also in the chat there too. So thanks for the follow and thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you everybody for the follows. We're glad to have an active chat for tonight. Should be fun.
Yeah.
All right. So this week on the 800's, we will be discussing our first mystery novel and first book of the eponymous series, Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. Dewey Decimal Designation 113.6. The mystery centers around the infamous Ellingham Academy, and it is known far and wide for educating the brightest thinkers, inventors, and artists, but also for one of the greatest unsolved murders in history. What secrets of the past will be revealed when this story's young crime-solving enthusiast Stevie Bell arrives on campus? The answers may be truly devious.
Very nice. So if you guys are joining us for the first time ever tonight, just give you a brief overview of what to expect. Alex and I will pitch topics, and we'll talk about each topic amongst ourselves, while we give you guys a chance to throw in a comment about what you think about what we're talking about, and we'll talk back and forth with you guys that way. If you guys have something you want to talk about, go ahead and throw that in the comment section as well. We'll see it, and we'll talk about that. Back to Alex.
And our usual little disclaimer here, we are not designed to be a kids show. We will try to not rely too heavily on swearing. It may happen a little bit, but we want to keep this a fun and supportive community for people to share their interests and hobbies. So, basic message being be nice or fuck off.
And with that, let's get right into the conversation. What were your first impressions of the book?
This one, it's a very different read. Again, it felt from the very beginning to be two very specific things. It's definitely a mystery novel, and it's definitely a YA novel. I got that impression from the very beginning. But none of that's bad in any way. It's just it definitely has a certain feel to it, and I felt that from. You can tell that the person who wrote this is very much in their wheelhouse, Maureen Johnson. So I felt a comfortability with the subject matter. There were certain tropes in there that are nice, and they didn't feel overly used, but they kind of have to be there. And I think she did a good job of kind of doing a meta narrative on it as Maureen went through the book, just having a character who's a murder enthusiast as the main character in a
Yeah.
murder mystery novel. Like I get that that's the same premise behind things like Harriet the Spy and Nancy Drew novels and that sort of thing, but it's a little bit different in this world of information and podcasts. You know, as true crime being one of the most popular subgenres out there. You know, so it was kind of interesting to read that because most of my experience with mystery novels has been pretty classic ones like your Sherlock Holmes and Agatha Christie novels, things like that. So having something a little more modern was interesting to read. What about you, Adam? What were your first impressions?
Oh yeah, I definitely got similar vibes about the target audience as well, being teens mostly. But that first chapter really hit hard. I love books that open up with a strong, heavily intense hook, and Truly Devious definitely hit that right on the head with the murder. So it was really exciting, and then kind of after that was a little bit less exciting. So I don't know, that the pacing definitely hit a wall after that first chapter, which kind of turned me off of it a little bit. But overall, really great hook for the beginning, and you know, Storm Reed, you did like the going back and forth between past and present. Yeah, that is a pretty good literary device to go back and forth and discover different parts of the story at the same time like that. I definitely enjoyed that, and I think Maureen Johnson did a really good job with that as well.
I actually had a little bit of an issue with it during some points. It felt like, well, maybe this is just something that frustrated me and it was intentional, but it felt like every time I was starting to put things together, I'd get a flashback that would take me away from something that I was putting together. And because I was listening to this in audiobook form, and again, this might be a media issue, I was losing what I was trying to put together with new information and trying to keep track of that. I guess I could have done it if I'd been taking notes, but like it just wasn't something that I could actively get in on. And I think part of that's on me because I'm one of those people that when I read a mystery novel, I'm trying to solve it from the very beginning, you know?
Yeah.
So I get there, I get to that point where I'm like, okay, I've almost got this one thing put together, and it's like, wait, I need to pay attention to this other thing that's going on over here. Wait a second. And it almost seemed purposeful though. Like it did, like Maureen Johnson didn't want you to put everything together until like a very specific point. And if that's intentional, well done. If not, that was frustrating as hell. I mean, either way it was, but still.
No, I definitely agree with there. For the first time ever, I specifically only listened to this while I was driving, and I did a little bit of a psychopath driver thing. I was talking to myself while listening to it so I could remember specific things better. But VS Drake, you thought Dottie was going to be the main character. I was right there with you. That's actually in my
Same.
notes. I really thought she was going to be a Nancy Drew type character, and I was getting real excited to see where she was going to go, and then she was hiding under a blanket, and I was like, she's gonna die.
Yeah.
What other comments we got here? Miss
I think Miss Scholar says that they liked that there was still so many unanswerable questions set up for the next book. Maureen Johnson did do a good job, I think, of doing that, just giving just enough answers to make it somewhat satisfying at the end, but setting up enough for another book. Now, I know that there's going to be 4 books in the series. I think the 4th one comes out in June, and I don't know that there were that many questions left over that it could be turned into that. So she's either doing some very creative writing or there's another mystery that comes up or something. But
well, I think kind of the gripe about the book and lending to the unanswered question aspect. I really expected at least one mystery to be solved per book at least. So uh, she definitely left both mysteries unsolved or suspected but not quite closed, um, which left a lot of room for speculation for us tonight. But
It looks like there's a lot of confusion in chat. Well, conflicting information in chat about the riddles. VS Drake seems to have loved them. The R4I vlog says that they had couldn't remember it, so they kept having to go back and forth to it, which I absolutely had to do like 4 or 5 times. That is until I believe Adam, you wrote them down for us when we were
yes,
prepping for this, so that definitely helped a bit.
here I'll pop them in
And
chat.
and Stormy didn't fully understand them. And I agree with VS Drake. I think it was very deliberate that we weren't supposed to get all the information from it. Like that's what the books are all going to piece together. And I feel like this book was just giving us that first clue. And that was, finding out a clue about who may have written the note. We'll probably get that a little bit later when we start going over actual plot points. But
well, what do you want to dive into plot now, or would you rather talk about something else?
Well, I think that I want to talk a little bit more before we get into the actual plot points on the meta element of this book. I know that I briefly scratched the surface of it, talking about how it's a main character who's into crime and true crime and solving mysteries, in a very modern way. And that has a lot, and she has a lot of comments on like how mysteries go and how this book seems to play into those tropes that we see in even the oldest of mystery novels out there and the most famous ones. I was wondering for you and for chat, what did you think about the cliches that happened and how they were approached by Maureen Johnson in this book? Like the cliches for a mystery.
Do you have an example of what you mean?
Well, like that typical. Like actually, the best one is probably the kind of foreshadowing that happens in any given mystery novel. The no, I sorry, I had an example in my head. I swear, I
Put you on the
apologize.
spot.
I had it in my head. I apologize to the chat. I'm a little funky right now. I just got the second COVID vaccine, and my head is, a little achy, but I'm otherwise fine. So, please don't take this as an indictment of the vaccine. But I know that there's certain foreshadowing elements to certain people's characters, like being able to tell who's going to die first is a good one, both for Dottie and for, honestly, I called it. I knew from like the instant that I knew somebody was going to die in this book. And one of my top 2 guesses for who was going to die was Hayes. Like there is a lot of elements there that lead him to potentially being, he was a very classic victim, and I was wondering if anybody else picked up on any of these tropes, how they felt about them, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so this was definitely my first mystery novel that I can recall. I'm pretty sure it was my first. The 800's has done wonders for me branching out, but it's still early in the process. But I think in terms of foreshadowing, Hayes was definitely a character to get axed. And he was just set up right from the beginning as somebody who stuck out in both positive and negative lights. He had the girlfriend and the ex-girlfriend, So you had like the jealous ex. You had the conflict with money. You had the he treats people like crap. So he's definitely somebody that was marked for death, I'd say.
Exactly. The idea is to create a character that is high profile enough that you would think maybe people wouldn't go after them, but there's a lot of potential there for motive. And what you want in a mystery novel is conflicting motives, things to make the reader question whether or not this really should be a person, but to think about as like a potential victim or why they might have been targeted, and there are some things that are very obvious, but then there's just that one little element that puts things into place that's just a little bit of a twist, you know. um, but it seems like chat here is talking a lot more about
The end.
the end. Yes.
Yeah, as far as chat saying, like, yeah, the lack of closure was definitely frustrating. Honestly, though, I felt like for a mystery, like like I said, I've never read mystery novels before, but for a mystery novel, doesn't it kind of make sense to not know what happened at the end? It's a mystery.
Well, having read several more mystery novels than you, it actually tends to be the opposite. Mystery novels, at least in my experience, have been a lot more episodic. They tend to be mystery begins, mystery is unraveled, mystery is solved. They tend to, you get some character development uh, as you go, but a lot of it revolves around the mystery itself, solving it, getting to know what kind of problem solver your detective or whatever crime solver is leading that story is. And this one did have that, but it did feel like it was kind of shoved a little in at the end, just like kind of like squeezed into there, just so that as like kind of a backdrop, so that you did have that, there was a case solved, but really it had been building up Truly Devious the whole time and then left it on a cliffhanger. you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, especially when you comparing like just general fiction novels, you want some sort of climax, and that was kind of there, but the conclusion was not. It's very open ended. But
Yeah.
um, one thing that I will say about the ending that I did like is there was new information that um oh my gosh, what's the main character's name?
Stevie.
Stevie. Yeah, there was new information that Stevie found that nobody else had ever found before, which I feel like is some sort of closure on at some little point.
Yeah, and I agree that, you know, I think that like that was the key to making this into a series is there was just enough information to make you want to know more, to realize that this was clearly intended to be a series from the beginning. This wasn't a individual novel that somehow just outgrew itself. Like there's an overarching story that Maureen Johnson wants to tell, and this is just the first part of it, and the other mystery wrapped up into it is just, I don't know, it felt a little more of a means to an end type of thing, and for us to get an idea of what kind of problem solver again that Stevie is. And that's what that particular mystery was. What is it like for her to go through and solve a mystery? And I actually kind of like that element because I think Maureen Johnson did a really good job of describing what it's like to use a lot of intuition when you're while also checking it with deductive reasoning. And that's not something I'd see typically as much in mystery novels, you know.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to the chat because it's really active and I want to get involved with them. So,
So
so
we're talking end game stuff again here.
yeah.
I do kind of want to, before we talk a little more about end game, I think we should talk a little bit about the beginning and the middle, and then
Yeah, why
can
don't we
jump
do
to the
that?
end.
Get into our plot points here.
So the main points of plot that I'd like to discuss is the setup for current day,
Mhm.
the premise of the past, and the movie that they make. Well, not movie, but
Tried to
video.
make.
Yeah. So let's talk setup, mansion on the mountain. What did you
Okay.
think of the scene for this Vermont mountain range with a mansion way far
So
away
the
from everyone?
setting, not the actual like setup with specifically Dottie, correct?
Yes.
I
Yep.
just want to make sure I'm understanding. Yeah. The setting, I thought that was very interesting because they bring it up very specifically. Again, this is where it gets kind of meta, where they talk about the setting in the mystery very specifically, what makes it good or bad for a crime to happen there. Like again, that's where they kind of break fourth wall a little bit, and it fits into exactly V.S. Drake. It is a classic murder mystery scenario where you put people in an unlikely space for something to happen, but also very likely because there's all these other factors that make it entirely plausible. And you know, the biggest twist on it is that they basically made it like a real life Hogwarts without magic. um, so it was. Again, I agree with V.S. Drake. It's a cool way to hide a very classic trope, and it was a. It kind of makes me wish that there were more places like that for real. I mean, honestly, places where you can just learn in your own way. Um,
Especially at a high school level, right?
yeah, exactly. It's like I don't know what the hell I want to do, but at the very least, I can explore a bit more.
Yeah, I feel like Johnson really nailed the boarding school vibe with
Yeah.
also throwing in the eclectic millionaire who built a mansion to his very specific ideas of what it should be, and F you if you want a classic building. So I thought it was pretty cool. I would have liked to see more of these hidden rooms and secret passageways. We only get the one little look at the very end.
Mhm.
And then obviously they mentioned the tunnel under the tunnel where Hayes died, but that felt like more of a natural thing and not really part of the mansion itself.
Well, I mean, we do get another glimpse at the very beginning, which I think for me is the reason why I agree with you that I wanted more of it. I thought it was going to be a much more widely used thing, is right at the very beginning when Dottie finds that observatory for like her reading spot. I thought for sure we were going to get so much more of that. And really, we only get it at the very beginning and the very end. And like, I agree. I don't include the tunnel as one of them
Yeah.
quite as much. I mean, it technically is, but seems like we've got a lot going.
What
People really like the setting in here.
yeah.
Storm Reed likes the the syrup buffet or the buffet with all the syrup. I don't know how I would handle that. Like, I like syrup as much as the next person, but geez,
Yeah.
but the
Hey,
playhouse
they're
in the
kids,
attic,
right?
yeah. But having like the playhouse in the attic, like this would be a really cool place to just explore. And I think I would like if I were there, especially in my teen years, I would have gotten lost any number of times.
Yeah. Yeah, the playhouse was a pretty cool aspect because it was kind of like, I don't, in my mind I envision it like Ellingham was looking at blueprints of the house and he was like, all right, I'm lost. Just can you build a small one and then I'll know what the heck's going on here because this makes no sense. So just build me one and then I'll know where my rooms are.
I actually kind of had a similar thought at one point. I was just like, it feels like Ellingham just kind of like sat down and said, "Build around me," like at any given point. And they kind of did in a sense. They built around his personality, and it shows in the way that Maureen talks about the campus is that it is very much the product of somebody who was both social and introverted and had a very eclectic set of interests and love to learn and explore. Like that just shows up in the way that she describes it. And I thought that was kind of cool, that she explored it through the eyes of people who would be most likely to enjoy that and really take it in, to people who are very much into, exploring and learning and treating it like a game, very much like he does. So that was a cool little tie-in that I thought.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
What about the past? So obviously it's the same place, but in 1936 and on,
Mm-hmm.
or I guess some scenes happened before 1936. What did you feel like you were there? Could you feel like it was 1936 when you were reading / listening to those scenes?
Other than the names of the people, not particularly. Like that, I think was the hardest thing for me to get into, was this idea that I was time shifting. Because aside from like the mentions of, like, it had to be very deliberate about saying, this very specific time related thing, like listening to the radio instead of watching it on TV or Googling something, there, it was really, other than the fact that like there was a very apparent jump that was happening because I knew the names, that could have honestly happened in the 50s or in the, any time where electricity and cars existed.
Yeah,
Like, I don't know, that one didn't do particularly good job of making me feel like I was in that time. But the names of the people, absolutely. Like, I don't know too many Doloreses whose nicknames are Dottie, from
yeah,
any modern era. But like beyond that, again, like it could have happened at any time. It just needed to be that long ago for purposes of why wasn't this crime solved at the time? Like,
wrapped up right away.
yeah, like it needed that to be the case just so that it could be a mystery.
Yeah, I honestly I agree. That was one of my gripes with Truly Devious was um my attention wandered for a second and we were in 1936 and I had no idea. And for the first little bit, I didn't understand that we were dealing with different timelines. Because it honestly, besides the name thing, like you mentioned, it's there's not a lot of difference between the two. There's not a lot of distinguishing things. People didn't talk differently. Um, Item descriptions were kind of there, but it wasn't like smack you in the face with a changing wall, and
Mhm.
there were no mentions of what do you call those pans you pee in at night?
Bedpans?
Bed pans.
Or are you talking about chamber pots?
Chamber pots. you
Like we're
know
getting even older there.
yeah, I know, but that's just my go-to example for it was old. We should have had something to indicate it was old.
I mean, there were some. It's just I didn't feel like I was there. I knew I was. Like, Stormmead has a good point. It did have something of a Great Gatsby feel, particularly like the house was used for parties and drinking and lots of champagne. And, you know, there was an element of that to it, but it always felt kind of like fuzzy in the background. It didn't feel like I was really in it. Like, because I've read The Great Gatsby, and every element of that book feels like you're in, the Roaring Twenties, drinking champagne while, swing
Yeah.
music is playing the background and whatnot. And this just didn't quite have that, but I don't think it necessarily needed to. Like, again, I
Yeah.
realized that timing was mostly introduced so that you could have a modern character looking back on a cold case, and this cold case had to have legitimate reasons for it not being solved. And I think that's really what that was mostly about. Plus, it's not unthinkable that there would be an eccentric millionaire who just wanted to spend his money on weird shit back in the day. And, you know, the fact that it wasn't entirely, you know, within a certain community and that person branched out beyond it was, I don't know, feels a little more likely back then than today, but maybe that's a bit jaded of an opinion from me.
Yeah. So Storm asked, do you think his wife was happy at the mansion? I did kind of want to talk about that a little bit. The wife specifically, just her character in general.
I had the same thing I wanted to talk about that as well, because I agree with P.S. Drake. I don't think she was happy there at all. In fact, there was a certain point when we were reading this book, I thought she had faked everything until we get the confirmation that her body turned up in a field.
Yeah.
I thought she had faked everything and taken the daughter with her to just get away. Like there was something going on, that, or, you know, Ellingham himself was truly devious and he was just trying to exit the world. Stage left.
Well, I mean, at the end. That was more like stage south, but
washed up on a beach. I'm sorry. Good correction there, VS Drake.
What washed up on the beach?
The body of the...
Oh, yeah. The
yeah,
wife.
I think, yeah, the body of the wife. I think the daughter was the one found in the field.
The daughter has not been found.
Or, yeah, you're right. Sorry. No, I'm remembering, I think from the...
VS Drake has it.
Dottie was found. I knew there was a little girl. There was a female body found in a field. That's all I got. But that's 3 out of 4 dead bodies in this book are female, so it's not much.
Yeah, but
yeah, it was Dottie in the field. Sorry, I told you I'm not 100% right now.
Yeah,
I'm trying my best.
Especially with Ellingham's wife's best friend. It felt, I don't know, I really got that vibe, like, you know, maybe his wife and her friend were like lovers and they wanted to run away and just escape from Ellingham's weird lifestyle. It definitely felt like she was in the background. And there was that one point where they specifically mentioned, like, she didn't want to live there, but she decided that she was okay with it because it was Ellingham's dream to open up the school. But that kind of does open up the theory book of, is this really a kidnapping?
It looks like VS Drake is asking us a question of what do you think of Nate and Janelle and characters and how they affect Stevie? Are you willing to jump into the present then, or did you have more you wanted to...
Let's go ahead and talk about that.
All right. That element, VS Drake, I think, is where the YA part of this novel shines most brightly. You've got a kid who's in the throes of, you know, young adulthood, who really hasn't experienced too many people that she can actually connect with. And it was really cool. I actually really like seeing the friendships between her and Nate and Janelle in particular. It was really cool to see some fairly nuanced background characters. That's absolutely right, Stormy. Nate is the perfect deadpan.
That's what I was chuckling about there.
That's so true. And he was a good, like, I think he was a good foil to most of the other characters, and I kind of like that. I really liked him as a character because he didn't try to be anything other than what he was, and that was surprisingly consistent for like a teenager. You know, how they affect Stevie, I think she gains a lot of self-acceptance throughout the book with who she is. And I think that she can only do that because she has them there, people who do accept her. And I thought that was really nicely done to put in characters that would allow for that, because otherwise I know what it's like to have panic attacks and what it's like to be a generally anxious person. And that kind of self-doubt, so easy to creep in and let it take over. And if you don't have things that can draw you back in and center you within yourself, and friends are some of the best ways for that to happen, it can be really easy to just, at least in a writing sense, it can be really easy to either not go enough down that road, or allow the character to develop naturally, and try to write through it, I guess is what I'm getting at. It's like it's very easy to not have that anchor point and just write through it. Like, character change just happens, and Maureen Johnson did a good job of making the character development for Stevie happen in a natural way, and giving her like personal anchor points for a character that really frankly doesn't have them, especially the way she talks about her parents and her old school.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, Nate and Janelle represent something that Stevie is missing in her home life. People she can lean on. I mean, that very first night when she had the panic attack, it was Janelle she ran to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she ran to Janelle, and immediately Janelle just kind of stepped in as the supportive figure.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of imagine that as like the mom that Stevie never had, because her mom obviously had very specific ideas of what she wanted Stevie to be, and I bet panic attacks probably didn't exist in her idea of where Stevie should be. So,
yeah, and to that same point, Nate did a good job of stepping in as the kind of friend who's willing to go outside their comfort zone to help you, and that's a surprisingly powerful thing. At least in my life, it has been, when you have a friend that's willing to step outside of what they're comfortable with to be a good friend. Like, I think that shows a true commitment to the friendship, and that's another thing that her parents never did. They were never willing to step outside their comfort zone for her, and if they were stepping outside their comfort zone, it was for their own gain, really.
yeah,
Or that's the way it was written, in my opinion. And
I would agree with that. Yeah.
yeah, so like Nate filled that void as well, and it seems like let's see, let's get a bit more in here from the chat. VS Drake agrees that Nate and Janelle are foils for the two sides of Stevie. I think actually, very specifically, in the book, Stevie actually mentions that they have these elements that are like, she has pieces of each of them in her, and she kind of sits neatly in the middle in between them. But I think VS Drake there brings up a good point, is they also had, two things that she needed on either side, with that they provide foils for a place for her to learn those things that she needed.
Yeah. I wonder if Nate is Maureen. Yeah, I think that's a hard thing to know without knowing Maureen more on a personal level, but I definitely think authors do have real life ideas of characters sometimes, and it's very possible that is a Maureen representation there.
At the very least, I have to imagine that was probably a writer writing about their own style of writing. Like, even if she's not like the character himself, like that idea of like, I'll procrastinate to any end, like to unless I find something that I hate more, and then I'll get the writing done.
That was perfect when Stevie asked Nate to write the script for their video, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, I got so much work done on my book."
I actually
100%.
laughed. I absolutely laughed out loud at that, just like, because I was, oh man, I was feeling that at my core, because I've absolutely done that before. Mrs. Scholar says that they're not a fan of Stevie's parents. I'm not either. They sucked ass. um,
They definitely didn't have a child because they wanted to nurture somebody. They definitely wanted a new version of themselves in the world.
yeah, they wanted somebody to live through by proxy and, to carry on their legacy. And to them, their legacy is apparently their very specific idea of what a person should be. And yeah, I actually could feel like the cringing that was happening in Stevie anytime that they talked about something. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that was like one of the few times in the book where I really felt in it with the character. That and during the explanation of what a panic attack is like. That was a good description.
Yeah.
But yeah, with her parents, ugh, I don't know. I think we all know somebody like that. And yeah.
Let's move on to different plot points here. There's one thing I wanted to talk about.
Right.
Very specifically, Via Strike kind of already touched on it, but sharing of information. So, Hayes goes missing, and nobody knows where he could possibly be. And Stevie goes, "Golly gee, maybe he's in the tunnel that we found that we weren't supposed to be in." And she goes to the security guard and is like, "Hey, we went into this tunnel, and maybe he's there." So they go there and they find his dead body, which I think was exactly 100% realistic. That's exactly what you want a character to do, because in real life you wouldn't just sit on that unless you're not very smart. You're gonna tell some authority about the secret tunnel that could possibly where your friend is in need of help. And the one thing I hated was I was sitting there thinking how cool it was that Maureen Johnson wrote that, and then Stevie hides the fact that she knows that Hayes was not accidentally killed, that he had to have had somebody else get the dry ice out, and she didn't tell anyone.
Oh my gosh, that was so annoying. But like, it felt like such a teenager decision to do it that way, though. Like she was in her element, and she's just like, "Oh, well, this is how they do it in all my like mystery novels and shit." But you're not in a goddamn mystery novel. You're not the actual detective. You're a teenager with zero actual authority. Get somebody involved.
Yeah.
Like, I know you don't want to have to give up on this, but like, again, that there is a certain recklessness that comes with being a teenager, and that felt a little real. Frustrating as hell, but real.
So I guess the real question is, do you feel like her obscuring that information and holding on to it until a later time was realistic, or do you think it was outside of what would have really happened if this was a true story?
I think it was unlikely, but not completely unrealistic. Like, okay. I could see a kid being that obsessed with like being in a murder mystery. She's supposedly calm, but she's obsessed with this stuff. She's been through a trauma, so she's not thinking 100% clearly to begin with. Like, it's realistic based on her character, but that type of character being a real person is very rare, and then even says so in the book that type of person is very rare. It could be that it happens. I think that in real life that was likely to happen? Absolutely not, but it could.
Yeah.
So it does feel I know why it was done, and I didn't like that it was done that way. But again, it's not completely like out of the realm of possibility for me. Via Strike seems to agree with me at the very least. It was realistic based on her characters, so we got one on that.
I think so. I was disappointed in the decision to have her conceal it after the fact that she shared about the secret tunnel, I felt like that was an indication that she would share it. But it was definitely very intentional by Maureen Johnson, because at some point somebody said, "Hey Stevie, we should go tell somebody," and she said no. So it's definitely not an oversight. It was definitely something that Johnson wanted Stevie to have as a character.
Yeah, it had to be a character choice, and I think that recklessness though does show up prior to that point. You know, it was foreshadowed a little bit.
When she just picks a lot.
Yeah. like there is like the things that she'll do to get to the bottom of a mystery. There are elements that are foreshadowed there throughout the book that she's willing to do maybe some questionable stuff to get information that she wants. Not just that, but when she goes through David's stuff, when he's like, "Oh, the laptop's in my lap. I should have to open it." Like, who the fuck does that?
I really wanted one detail that was missing, because obviously it's from Stevie's perspective. So, and she got lost in it, so she has no idea how much time passed. But how long was she on that laptop?
I mean, presumably not that long where she could find, like, because somebody who's that much into detective work, if they're on there for that long, she probably would have figured out, more stuff about David. Like, I don't know how much he keeps on that computer because he is tech savvy, obviously. So maybe he's wiped all existence of his parents from that. But I have to imagine there's something on there that she would have found that would have linked him, linked him to that senator.
Teenagers.
Oh man, I'm pretty sure there's a song about that by My Chemical Romance. I think the lyric goes, "Teenagers scare the living shit out of me."
So anyway, I want to talk riddles, but I've been kind of hogging the topics. Alex, do you want to pitch a topic real quick?
Actually, I was literally just about to say I wanted to talk about the riddles. So, way to be a psychic.
All right, let's talk riddles.
Oh man.
So, real quick, I will pop the 3 riddles into the chat so that we have a convenient and accurate thing to use.
Yeah, just popping them into chat. Okay, so let's see here. We got the first one. Look, a riddle, time for fun. Should we use a rope or gun? Knives are sharp and gleam so pretty. Poison slow, which is a pity. Fire is festive, drowning slow. Hanging's a ropey way to go. A broken head, a nasty fall, a car colliding with a wall. Bombs make a very jolly noise. Such ways to punish naughty boys. What shall we use? We can't decide. Just like you cannot run or hide. Ha ha. Truly devious. The ha ha in it just throws me off. Honestly, go ahead.
Let's talk first riddle. What were your thoughts? Do you think there's a secret meaning behind it, or is it just to mess with Ellingham?
Well, I mean, there's a clear correlation between how everybody died and the different lines in the poem. Like, I don't know if there's much more other than they specifically had planned to kill people in these specific ways. But that part seems planned. So I don't know what came first, chicken or egg. Like, did the murder plan come first, or did the poem come first? It definitely was meant to mess with his head, mess with Ellingham's head. Assuming he's not actually the murderer and this isn't just some conspiracy. Like, that's the game. But I just have the one little extra point. I did think that it was deliberately chosen because the way that you kill somebody says a lot about you as a murderer. Like, that's a pretty well-known fact for identifying unsubs, unknown subjects. I believe they reference that as like a crime term. like the way you kill somebody says a lot about who you are as a murderer, and the fact that they did it in so many different ways makes it feel like, I don't know. It made me really skeptical about whether or not this was entirely to mess with him as much as it was to give them a lot of different options for how to get this done.
Yeah. So on first listen, I thought it was supposed to be like, all right, you're gonna have to guess how we killed somebody, and here are your options, and figure out which one points to a dead body. But then obviously what ends up happening is these are all events that happen in the story.
Mm-hmm.
Starting with the rope and gun, right? Somebody got the rope. I think it was the girl, the student.
Dottie.
Yep, Dottie. And then the wife got shot. And then obviously at the very end, the boat with Ellingham and the cop blow up. So,
Well,
and they do reference in the middle of the story. They're like, all right, each line happens somehow. Yes, Dottie was tied up via string. But what the one line that I'm curious about is such ways to punish naughty boys.
I thought that was just referring to Ellingham and his friend because they were both on the boat.
Yes, but the weird thing is that the cop that was on the boat with him doesn't come in until after events start happening. So is he really one of the ones being punished? Is he just roped into this whole thing because he joined in? Like, it makes me wonder why they're naughty boys and who's the second of the boys.
Well, it's pretty clear though that that cop was around though. Like he was basically security for Ellingham, not just, a guy. Like it's not like he was just never there. He was there. It's just he wasn't there in an FBI capacity in any way prior to that point, or at least not in the same kind of capacity. But it does make you wonder where the naughty boys comes from. Like, what is that specifically referencing? Now, clearly, this poem is meant to show just how intelligent Truly Devious is, that they were able to plan out all these different things and make them happen, and not get caught doing it while providing ostensibly some kind of clue. So I think personally it kind of fits. It still kind of fits them, but it does, like you say, leave you with the question of why were they naughty boys?
Yeah.
Or was that just to throw them off and lead them towards the, what is it, Vorchek or whatever that guy's name is, the anarchist who was blamed for the murders?
Yeah.
Like, was it? Yeah. Was that to lead them there just to throw breadcrumbs on the wrong trail?
Yeah. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of questions with that. My main takeaway, kind of similar to what Storm says, kind of strange that Dottie fits into the riddle. I almost think the riddle is separate from the events, and it's somebody who saw a chance to blame somebody else for their actions. So they followed this map as close as they can in hope that somebody finds the riddle maker and blames them for the crimes and not the true perpetrator.
Yeah, and that's entirely possible because Stevie said at one point, in the book, when she's asked about don't most murderers leave don't basically all murderers leave notes? When she's talking to Nate, she's like, no, almost none of them do. And he's like, well, they do in books and movies.
Yeah.
That felt like kind of something that was done with that kind of inspiration of let's follow a script so that we can have a twist or turn or something that can throw people off. And uh, we kind of get that clue at the very end about the Bonnie and Clyde kids. I forget what.
Picture,
Yeah, the picture. It's that your theory, at least for me, seems to fit with it being kids on campus, because they're the type of people who would have read books and wanted and maybe thought, if we can make this fit, like that's what their inspiration was. They were very clearly smart. And to circle back quickly to our little location thing, I always thought when they kept bringing up that the location was both good and bad for doing a crime, who's got, they said you have to do a lot to get there to make a crime happen and a lot to get out. Well, what if you're already there and you don't get out?
Yeah.
So, why were the students not an option?
That was one detail that kind of struck me odd, is that no investigation was ongoing with the students, because I mean, you would think that they would investigate everybody who could have possibly been there, but the students were just kind of ignored.
Yeah, thinking of an era, possibly police oversight. Yeah, like
Yeah.
back in that might be something that's a thing of an era. Just like kid couldn't possibly be murderers.
It was 1936.
Not even a bunch of eccentric geniuses that were brought to a singular location
Yeah.
with very little background.
Yeah.
With other than academics, but
I think too, Storm is onto a possible solution there too. The cop being possibly involved with the kidnappers. He was in position. He did come back from the meeting after the first cash grab and say, like, I talked him into letting me handle the cash. It kind of sounds like he might have a little bit of an inside hand going on there, but yeah, sorry to jump around all over here, but via Strake, what about the Sherlock line Dottie underlined? Did we ever find out what that line was?
I honestly don't remember. I remember very specifically like listening for that and then getting distracted and never nothing in my head ever popped up again. Okay, so good confirmation via Drake. I don't remember anything happening, but I very specifically, when I was just waiting for that clue to pop up throughout like the entire throughout most of the book, and then towards the end got distracted and didn't know if it got thrown in there, but looks like it wasn't.
Yeah, that's definitely something that'll probably come up in a future book. That maybe Stevie's going through a Sherlock book and goes, "Huh, this one's underlined." Looks at the front page. Oh, look, Dottie was the last one to check this book out.
Yeah, it very much seems like that's what's probably going to happen in some shape or form. That, or she's going to bring one of her friends in on it, and they're going to accidentally stumble upon it. But like, if anybody did, it would be Nate. Just like, well, you've been investigating murders, so I figured I'd read some mystery.
So she found it and dismissed it, according to V.S. Drake, which is kind of disappointing. Oh, well, I guess we'll have to read the rest and find out if it ever comes back up. Let's move on to the second riddle. I will read it real quick. Where's my mouse? Riddle, riddle on the wall. Murder comes to play a call. A body in a lonely field. Will its secrets be revealed? Or the lady in the lake? Will she give the lucky break? Alice, Alice, where are you? Won't you give a simple clue? The detective's here. It's time to play. Truly Devious lives another day.
So that one, we already have a question on it. Yes, Drake asked us, do we believe that the second one is real? So what are your thoughts on that, Adam?
I don't think it was real. I think it was her imagining. I honestly, it doesn't. I can't figure out a character that it would make sense to do that to Stevie for. Like, I thought about it for a while, and I was like, I can't pin anybody to be like, I'm gonna mess with Stevie and put this on her wall, and the wording just, I don't know. It just, to me, it doesn't seem like it feels like it should fit with Hayes's murder, and I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it does.
V.S. Drake has a theory on who did it. David, I actually had a similar thought that for a long time, I believed the same as you, Adam, that I thought it was just fake. But at the end, the more we see of David's behavior, I kind of got that feeling that maybe like he might have been the one who did it. And the thing is, this riddle all uses information that Stevie, as a fanatic of this, would know, except at the very end when it says it's time to play Truly Devious lives another day. So that person would have to know very specifically a lot of what Stevie knows about this, while also knowing a bit about Truly Devious. And I have that feeling that David is hiding something big, and it's not just his dad. Like, it clearly goes beyond that. Or if it is his dad is linked to Truly Devious as well. Because the Truly Devious thing lives another day feels like this has been generationally passed on.
Yeah.
Somehow.
So that was one of the things Mrs. Skolart and I talked about before. She went to bed, so she's not here to comment. But she mentioned, sorry, she mentioned that she thought David could have been a descendant of Truly Devious, and he's there to follow in his ancestors' footprints. I honestly, we're kind of jumping a little bit, but with V.S. Drake, David is also my number one suspect for at least Hayes's murder.
Yep, definitely agree that element is a red herring. Like, I think she may have had something to do with Hayes' death, or she knows one little thing too much about David and put the pieces together herself.
Yeah. Honestly, like, the thing about David for me is I feel like Stevie has this big blind spot where she's really good about separating facts from opinions, from supposition, except when it comes to David. It feels like he says things and she just assumes it's fact, even though it's hearsay. Like,
because hormones.
Yeah. So yeah, wait, yeah.
Teens.
I feel like it's really clever writing on Johnson's part to be like, yeah, Stevie separates facts from supposition, and then David says things like, I don't know about the tunnels, and she's like, yeah, it's a fact, David doesn't know about tunnels.
Yeah. Like, he couldn't possibly be lying, even though he's done it to me like numerous times over and over.
The only time he's ever told me the truth was when he got found out.
V.S. Drake mentions that David is also a predator. I don't know that he's been outright put out as a predator, but he definitely has a sense of entitlement, and like, he knows how to turn certain things just on and off. He's not quite a complete sociopath unless he's just that good at faking it, or written to be that good at faking it. But he knew when to, well, that's actually the Stevie being in shock thing. That is as close to predatory as he gets. But I guess I'd put in a little bit of wiggle room for, again, just teenage hormones. Like, we as adults might think rationally about that, but like I don't think it's cool as an adult knowing that that's what was happening. Like I did think that was creepy. Like, dude, she just saw a dead body and you're full on like rolling in the hay with her type of deal.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be one thing if there was like a moment of passion, but like that clearly had gone for a while. They were like sweating when it came out of it.
Yeah.
And you know, I also
It
get like it'd be a weird position to be in if you know somebody's in a vulnerable state and they kiss you because she did kiss him.
yeah. It
Or
makes sense. Stevie's actions make sense because she was in shock.
yeah,
But David's actions were way in left field. Like he didn't have the shock to fall against. Like he should have been the Rock, and he wasn't.
should have been. And again, like I didn't think it was a cool move, but I guess in my mind it played off as all right, really shitty, horny teenage boy. Like I didn't take it past that until towards the very end, where I had a bit of where I started putting it together. Like V.S. Drake said, these are very like if these were calculated and deliberate, that was very predatory. You know, and closing the door for privacy is kind of a normal thing when you're a kid, I would think. I mean,
Yeah.
again, I don't think it's cool. I'm not saying it's okay what he did. It was predatory. I just I was trying to get in the mindset of a teenage boy, and I was just like, okay, I could see a teenage boy being dumb enough to do that, regardless of how smart they are.
Yeah. So it sounds like the verdict's still out for David. Storm says David does have some good motives, right? He helps her parents, and then convinces her parents to let Stevie stay.
But is it for her or is it for him? I mean, if he's connected with Truly Devious and he likes the game as much as the second riddle would say it's time to play, he wants his playmate to stick around.
Yeah,
Huh? Huh? I mean, it
that's a
could
good
be.
point. That's a good point. Yeah.
Like we don't know. That's the thing, but that's the mystery of it.
So let's jump to the point that I've wanted to talk about the entire night.
Okay.
The Sphinx, as Ellingham called it, the Sphinx riddle, and the only real riddle that we're going to talk about, apparently. Uh, where do you look for someone who's never really there? Always on a staircase, but never on a stair.
On that one, I remember very specifically because I was listening to the audiobook. It picked V.S. Drake says a picture, and that's ultimately where I landed. But I only heard the second half. I only heard the always on a staircase but never on a stair part, and I missed the first half. And I was like, oh, my first reaction was, oh, it's obviously a case.
Yeah.
Like,
So I think you guys are onto something with picture, but that doesn't really have anything to do with staircase.
staircases very typically have walls of pictures next to them, but
Typically, but always.
yeah, I mean, it depends on how literal this is being.
Okay.
See,
Okay.
like I had that as a thought as well, though, because it doesn't exactly fit.
Let me move on here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because you're onto something, and I want to jump in.
All right, please do.
So my staircase does not have pictures. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I too stopped at picture and thought, okay, this is in the right direction. Then I whipped out a thesaurus / Google. And because I thought picture makes sense for the first one, but not for the second one. The reason picture makes sense for the first one is because you have somebody in a picture who's not actually there. They're not there.
Yeah.
Their picture is. What other things are similar to a picture that fit both halves of the riddle? If you think about it, a staircase is a very specific term, and the riddle calls out the fact that it's a very specific term by relating it to a stair. A staircase, and I typed this up, for very specific reasons. Yes, you just clicked it, Alex. A staircase or stairway is one or more flights of stairs leading from one floor to another, and it includes landings, newel posts, handrails, balustrades, and additional parts. The key here, I think, is landings. I would argue that a staircase includes the floor it starts on and ends on. And in that case, another word for floor is story.
So, and that does fit the first one as well. Stories have someone who's never really there. Stories also could be interpreted as memories, which, that I really like that interpretation. Like, so where do you think that would lead a potential Stevie if she...
I know, right? Like, how does that tie in? That's the only reason I think I'm wrong. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, Stormy says they think the picture Stevie finds in the end was the clue, albeit, the mystery still needs to be solved. That could be right. I mean, pictures are just a memory. They are a story told visually.
Yeah.
Like, so that maybe that's part of it. Yeah, so there's a lot of ways this could be interpreted, but I really like that. Like, it gives you a lot to think about. Via Straight says they're guessing it is a picture, and Ellingham hid all his research behind a painting.
That is definitely something an eclectic millionaire would do.
But I kind of like your interpretation where maybe it's hidden in a story, either in a newspaper, which Ellingham was known for, or
because he owns several newspapers,
or it's in a book that he and or his family favored, or something like that, or something that ties him in with Truly Devious, which we don't yet know about.
Although it is interesting that all of the old stuff from the past is stored in the attic, which an attic is technically a story to a house.
True. I think we'll find out more as Stevie catalogs more and more of this stuff.
Yeah. But anyway, I like that everybody went the picture route with this. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, but yours opens up a very interesting other avenue, and I think that brings us to a good point of wrapping up here now that we've made it through all three riddles.
Yes.
So let's do a couple quick predictions and then final impressions. What do you say?
Oh, who done it?
Yep.
And what did you think of the ending? What did you think overall?
Okay. So, well, not just the who done it. Do you mean that for the Truly Devious, or do you mean that for Hayes, or both?
Let's go with both.
I think I like what we talked about with the chat. Yes, Drake is so voting David off.
I feel like this is a case of what's that video game we play? Among Us?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Among Us. I'm voting David. Get him off. Yep. Eject.
No, VS Drake already called him sus, so yeah, absolutely. Super sus.
Yeah.
I think there's a solid chance that David is a continuation of Truly Devious. I am not sure if that is through... It feels like that would be a grandparent to grandchild thing. While his dad is clearly, or at least presented to be a prick.
I think his dad's too young to have been.
Unless it was, 3 generations, and his dad, for whatever reason, couldn't get in. But this feels like the kind of thing that, like, a grandparent, upon finding out that their grandchild is glowing. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just giggling at something that came up in our mod chat.
Automod has been a real stickler tonight.
Yeah, kissing her and blows them.
I mean, the second one. So, David, who did the original?
Who did the original? I, from the very beginning, suspected a student or teacher, or possibly one of the Ellingham family. Again, I already talked to my very brief theory that it was the wife,
Yeah.
And it could possibly have been the FBI guy, but I have a feeling that it was a student. It fits a lot of potential clues as to, okay, what was their MO? Their MO is something that they did that generally only happens in movies and TV shows. And again, think era of like the 1930s, who's most likely to be influenced by a very, very new form of media back then, but younger people. Edward, you think is an Edward Jr. Sorry, I'm reading V.S. Drake's thing. V.S. Drake thinks that his dad is a Edward Jr., but does not use the Jr. I think is an outside player, not introduced yet. Yeah, I think the people in the picture very well may be it. Again, I think it was a student. I think it was a student that lived in Minerva with Dolores. Knew them well enough to know that they would know what the fuck was up.
Yeah.
And these students were very, they're very clever, but they were very influenced by something new to their world, which was, movie and book tropes and things like that. And they both have, they basically go around the two problems with being out there. They're already there, so they don't have to worry about getting in. And if they know how to cover their tracks, they don't have to worry about getting out either.
Yeah.
So it just
to jump real quick with V.S. Drake here. We don't necessarily know that Dottie wasn't meant to die. It definitely, the way the person in that scene was talking, they made it sound like it was a opportunistic attack, but honestly, it could have been more of a, if I get the opportunity, I'm going to kill Dottie. And they were upset that they got the opportunity, that they really didn't want to go down that road. I don't think we really know enough of what happened back then to say that Dottie's murder wasn't a murder.
Oh, I didn't mean it in that way. In fact, what I very much meant is I think she
V.S. Drake's comment, not yours.
Oh, I thought you were coming back from his around to mine. I honestly think it was intentional because I think they knew Dottie well enough to know that if she was around, she might figure shit out.
Yeah.
Because she was that smart and she was that into figuring things out. Like, I think she was deliberately targeted because they were a flaw in the plan. And the only people who would know that she could be a hitch in the plan would be people who knew her well, students and teachers. That's basically it. So I thought that was very purposeful and, again, fits students and teachers the best.
Yep. So for me, I'm obviously on Team David. We should vote him out immediately. As for the initial crime, honestly, I think that picture could very well be the people who wrote the riddle by Truly Devious, but I don't think they were the ones that committed the kidnapping. I land on the FBI guy as my number one. Motive withstanding, I'm not really sure on that one, but just the way he handled the interactions with the kidnappers seemed a little sus. And then Storm kind of mentioned it, but the boat scene where they both blew up kind of feels like one of them maybe didn't die on the boat thing.
Yeah. And I actually kind of agree with you as well. I don't expect that two students would have been able to do everything on their own, but it feels like they might have been the masterminds. And one of the things that they talk about very briefly is how Ellingham, while it was supposedly supposed to be a place for intellectuals and, you know, great thinkers and learners, half of the population of the school were kids of his friends and stuff. You know, were these kids related to, maybe even related to the FBI agent somehow, like his kids or somebody that he knew, like they're kids of somebody that he knew that he was working with? Or did they have some other kind of outside help? Because it does feel like they do have some outside help getting certain things done. And the biggest clue is exactly what you said, is that boat scene feels like there's more to it, you know, because it happened out in the water. Who the fuck knows?
Yeah.
Like, well,
The facts were they both left the mansion intending to go on the boat. And the boat exploded. But in between that, we don't really know exactly what happened. So there's a lot of potential there, I think.
all right. So why don't we move into our final impressions then on this book?
Let's talk final impressions.
Why don't you go ahead and start us off there, Adam?
Okay, cool. Yeah, we talked a little bit about the ending already, about how we were kind of disappointed that no murders were solved. I definitely felt left hanging. I think Truly Devious could have been part one of a large novel and not necessarily its own novel. But I liked how easily I fell into feeling like the characters were real. I liked a lot of the interactions that Stevie had with her peers and the growth that we saw through various characters, which wasn't really something I was expecting in a murder mystery. I was really thought the murder mystery was going to be stage front and everything else was going to be kind of meh. But yeah, I bought book 2 and have started it, but I haven't gotten too far yet. So I will let you guys know if you want who Truly Devious is when I find out. So
Well, you might not get to know that until June when the
yeah.
fourth book comes out. But I would tend to agree. This was a good, fun little read with a little bit of an upsetting ending. It's a little less upsetting because we have immediate access to book 2. If I didn't, I'd be like, why wasn't this just a bigger book? um, you know, it was fun to read though. I did like, despite my frustrations with her, I did like the main character. So she was fun to read through. It was fun to see the world through her eyes and see how intuitive she is and see that written so well. You know, it's something that I too plan to read, you know, continue reading, and I would recommend it to somebody who wants a pretty light mystery novel to read. Like, it's not going to be a heavy thinker, but it doesn't need to be either. It's fun. It's, you know, good but not great. It's definitely a YA novel. Like, just if you keep that in mind, of the novels that we've read geared towards like younger readers, this one has been the most blatant about it.
Yeah. Remind me to recommend that one book later.
I'm glad we read it as well. I'm really glad that we got into mystery. Like, we finally covered a regular fiction book, historical fiction, mystery. Like, we're really branching out from our wheelhouse, which is, you know, your sci-fi fantasy, and really exploring all that the 800's has to offer. Yeah. So on that, why don't we head into wrapping up our show for the night?
Just one quick thought, though. I did forget.
Okay.
I would also recommend it. This does land in the would recommend column.
Yes,
so I was pretty happy with it overall. So
yes, absolutely.
But for wrap stuff, we have a new book vote that has ended. Before we talk about that, the next book to read is Promise of Blood by Brian McClellan. Read that by April 11. And our new book, sorry, copy paste, is Artemis Fowl by Oin Colfer. Read by April 24. So pretty excited about that. So yeah, definitely start reading Promise of Blood now. It's a long one, so a little bit longer than Truly Devious. It's going to take some time to get through, but I hear good things about it. On that note, too, Roll for Initiative, thank you for suggesting Truly Devious for us.
Yes, thank you very much. It was a fun read.
Yeah.
And thanks for taking us out of our comfort zone.
Yeah. Super quick, some plugs. If you want to know anything about us, go to dmstable.com. We've got all the information you could ever want there. If you want to see past book videos or our podcast Roll with Advantage, check our YouTube channel out. It's just YouTube and search DM's Table. There's a link somewhere to, yes, there's a link below the video. It says YouTube. If you click it, it brings us brings you to our page. Also, Patreon is how we decide what book to read next. And it's also the only way we make money. So if you want to give us money, check out our Patreon. It's just $2 and you get to vote on what book we read next. We put up 3 books that we like and you guys get to vote for it. So it's pretty cool. Also, if you want to talk to us, we have 2 socials that we're pretty active on. That's Facebook and Twitter. Facebook handle is The DM's Table and Twitter is DM's Table. The links are below as well. So hit those up. Yeah, like I said, we chatter on there a lot. We talk about what book is coming up and we try and get the hype going. And also, we have a nerd chat on Discord. We talk about all things nerdy, including books. If you guys want to join us in that chat, hit us up on our socials and we'll get you the link. And Alex has a couple of things he wants to talk about for book themes, as well as some other couple of little announcements. Alex, if you want to take it away.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us in our last book of Women's Month. It's been fun reading some pretty cool, strong female characters from some great writers, both of whom I hope continue writing because it was really fun reading their works. We will be starting off anything 800's April with, as we just said, we voted on Promise of Blood, and we will be finishing April off with Artemis Fowl, one of my favorite books from my childhood. So I'm looking forward to discussing that. And after that, in May, we will be promoting Mental Health Awareness Month. The books will not necessarily be themed as such, but we will have some specific plugs and stuff revolving around mental health awareness. So please join us for that. Also, keep in mind that during April, our votes for the May books will be open to anybody. That means that if you go to our Patreon during the month of April, all of our book votes, the votes will be open to anybody. So please, if you want to wield the power of telling us what to read, come on and join us and let us know not only what books you want to be on the vote, which you'd have to let us know as soon as possible, but tell us which ones on that vote you want us to read. Bring a friend through May to read with us, or to show them what the power of voting is. And if you like it, $2 a month gets you on the voting for the rest of it actually starts tomorrow. Good point. Starting tomorrow, you'll be able to vote for anybody, not just patrons. So give it a check out the Patreon. If you like the power that it comes with, then please consider giving the $2 a month to Patreon. Taste the power. And finally, one last thing. A friend of the show actually just published her own book, and The writer's name is Sophia Hahn. I will say that is a pen name. I do know this person personally, but she wrote a book called Disengaged. It's book 1 of 3 in the Blake romance series that she's published. It's $8.50 for paperback or $1.99 on Kindle, or free if you have Kindle Unlimited. We are not being paid to promote this. She's just a friend of the show, and we love to support new authors. So if you like yourself a good, steamy romance novel, then go check out Disengaged, a despicable millionaire boss employee fake engagement romance. Thank you, A Skittle, for posting the link to that. And like I said, we love to support authors and all things 800s on this show.
Yeah, so if you guys are secretly an author, let us know. We'll read your book.
Yeah.
Just give it a harsh review. Just really slam it on the show and just really make you regret ever hearing about the 800s. That's what we're all about. So. Oh, wait. Sorry. That was my imagination getting away from me.
Now, fuck off, Adam. Oh, that's right, B.S. Drake. We have not read a romance yet. Who knows? Maybe this will be on our vote coming up. And if you want it to be on our vote, let us know, and maybe we can. And then you can tell us whether or not to read it.
Yeah.
So that's all in the power of your hands, the voting public, not just our patrons. So. Yeah, I think that about wraps it up for tonight. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. This was an awesome episode. Love being able to engage with the chat so much.
Yeah, thanks, guys, for joining us. And it was nice to see a bunch of different perspectives and have some clashing viewpoints. That's always a cool thing for discussion. So thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we will see you next book.
Yes, I'm going to get back to reading.